Hello, hello everybody. I am Maria, and I'm the marketing manager or community lead of Europe. And we are really happy today because we can start with our first FriDAI Brunch, which is will be a series of meetups that we will host every month. And in this series of meetups, we will try to focus on new and different topics, not always related to DeFi, but in general to Web3. And we want to address new topics like, for example, UX, design, marketing, or in general also personal experiences and personal feelings regarding working in this space. So today is the first one, and we will have two very fresh and young professionals working in the space for a while, and they are Leah Schmitt from Centrifuge, and Gustav Arentoft from BD team of Maker Foundation. So now I will just I will interview them, and this will be a very easy and fun interview. And I will now let them appear on the screen so we can start.
Hi.
Guys, now you're unmuted and
we're unmuted now. Hey, everyone.
I think we're still missing Gustav's picture, but good morning, everyone.
I can see myself.
Yeah, you can. So hello, Leah and Gustav. Thanks for joining. We can now start with the questions with the interview. So the interview will be divided in three parts. The first is personal related. The second is the focus on Web3 and the blockchain, and then some like conclusion and advices from you and some recommendations. So. First question. I know, guys, that you are friends and you know each other for a while. So I want to ask you to introduce the other. I mean, Leah will introduce Gustav with a quote, which you thought about in this day, and we want really to hear what you choose.
Okay, so I'm going to start. Okay.
Yeah.
Actually, I thought this was going to be way easier than I thought it would be. So just as a heads up, my perspective is a little bit biased because I I got to know Gustav in the DeFi space. So my quote is from Milan Kundera, and it's from one of my favorite books, The Unbearable Lightness of Being. And the quote is, "Anyone whose goal is something higher must expect someday to suffer vertigo." And I thought this was quite describing of just like the space that we're working in, and also who chooses to work in that space. I talked to Gustav, I think 2 weeks ago, where we said, okay, we have been now in the space for like 2 years, and it has been a little bit of a roller coaster. It has these crazy ups and downs, and like just like crazy use cases, etc. And it can be quite exhausting at times, but it's also really exhilarating and really exciting. So I think Gustav is someone who chooses vertigo in his life.
Thank you for those very kind words, Leah.
I hope this is somehow descriptive.
No, yeah.
I don't know if Gustav was here.
The funny thing was also, so we got this task from Maria, and Maria was kind of like the person in the middle. So when I sent over my quote, she said, "Oh, it's funny, Leah actually picked something very similar for you." So in the quote that I have chosen for Leah.
Can you hear us?
Yeah, you can't hear me?
Yeah.
Can you hear me, Leah? Hello?
Leah, can you hear Gustav?
No.
No.
So Let me.
Maybe Leah, she muted me personally.
I don't know. Now? But
Okay.
can you hear me?
Okay, so then it must be me.
Yeah.
Let me
So,
check.
guys in the chat, can you please see?
Yeah, they can hear. They can hear all of us.
Okay.
We were checking it earlier and it worked, right?
Yeah, earlier it worked.
Now I can hear you actually.
Okay, can you hear now?
See you. Okay, I wasn't able to see you before. Okay, that's weird.
Okay.
Anyway.
Okay, yeah. So I'm just gonna pick off where I left off. So the quote that I came up with, Leah Maria then told me that it was pretty similar. The quote that I've chosen for Leah, there'll be a little bit of an explanation afterwards, but it's from Helen Keller, and she wrote that, or like she said that life is either a daring adventure or nothing at all. I think like the three ground pillars of how I know Leah is that she works in this space, she's into climbing, and she lives in Berlin. And if that doesn't sound like a daring adventure, I don't know what is. So this is kind of like how I see Leah. And then, of course, I also have a great respect for her professionally.
Now I feel like your introduction was way better than mine.
No, I thought you guys. They were very good quotes. And I think I know both of you, and I think that they were really good choice.
Yeah, I'm very competitive, so.
So we can proceed. And the second question is, so if you could change something in the world, what would it be? The answer should be very short and like straightforward. What would you change in the world, Leah?
Okay, I think that's like completely unrelated to Web3 and completely unrelated to maybe this topic, but I think what we're also seeing right now, the world is not a very equal place, and I think we all should take a step back and see that we treat those, or like that we treat everyone how we want to be treated, and if we realize that we're not as educated about a certain topic, that we just take a step back and learn and make sure that we educate ourselves.
Good. Gustav?
Yeah, for me, I think there's of course like a lot of things that I would love to see change in the world, but I believe that one thing which I personally can help influence a change in is the equal and fair access to financial services, which can drastically improve lives. So that's kind of like the forefront that I want to be working on. And it also comes from I used to live in Argentina for a year and a half, where I kind of like saw how much people are pressed by just like these like unfair local environments that people can live in. There's such a big difference just depending on like where you're born in the world, on like your opportunities, and this is something that I want to help diminish.
Perfect. Amazing, guys. And we are actually doing a job which is influencing both, in general, the fairness and the we can help. So it's cool to work in this space also for this reason. And then the next question is, what was your very first approach to the blockchain space? And where are you now? So what is your role now? Is the same that the one that you joined when you enter, or it has changed? We also start here from Leah again.
Okay, I thought we were gonna mix up. Okay, so I have like whenever you hear the stories of like how people enter, I have a little bit of a boring story. So a few years ago, I was working for an energy company, like a big corporate, and there we were looking to find alternative business models for a deteriorating industry, and we were experimenting with blockchain, and on one side building our own ventures, but also investing. And at some point they sent me to Palo Alto to work on a project for crypto lending, and I didn't really have, I had no clue. And then I went out and went to a bunch of startup meetups, and I actually, I went to one of the meetups in Berkeley where Nadav from Dharma was giving a talk, and that was way before they even launched and before they had their pivot. And I was like, okay, there might be something to this. And it was a really interesting, like how when I got more and more into it, I learned that it can be really a powerful tool to change an incumbent industry that you're currently working in. For me, that was really the energy industry. And then when I learned about Centrifuge, I thought there is a real way to disrupt the supply chain finance world and more the finance world. And now I'm a little bit back to my roots with talking to corporate. So in my position now at Centrifuge, I have a partnership role, a biz dev role. So I'm the one talking to those traditional companies that seek finance to onboard them into the DeFi space.
Cool.
Yeah. And you hang out with some of the DeFi projects too, right, Leah?
I do hang out with some of the DeFi projects.
Yeah, so I think like where I first like got in touch just a little bit with the space and where I kind of like started getting way more into it, that was like years apart. So all the way back in like 2013, I was just like a teenager, very interested in technology, and I just kind of like started playing around with Bitcoin a little bit, but it never really caught my attention a lot. But like a few years later, I started investing a lot in stocks, and I've been very interested in the stock markets also from like a relatively young age. So like I always had this fascination of like finance, investment, and technology. And then come the time where all of a sudden I'm living in Argentina. I get paid in Argentine pesos. The inflation at this point is, similar to what it is now. So basically, when I just got there, like what I was doing in the beginning was that I was, changing pesos to dollars and like, back alleys and like fake storefronts and like working with that kind of like the black market, you could say. And then all of like completely random and like a night out, I met a guy who ended up becoming one of my closest friends, and we then moved in together. And when we moved in together, I found out that he was running a mining operation, and then OTC trading desk. So people were coming to our apartment and trading with him, and that kind of like put me back into the space. And that was when I started really getting into it. This was, just before the bull run. So like while that was going on, there was like so many crazy things happening out there. And I was into like the more like, I think you could call it like the money side of things, like the money environment, whereas like Bitcoin is mostly used. I knew about Ethereum, but didn't really know about it in details. At this point, I was working as a consultant within financial technology. So we started looking at some Ethereum projects. And that's kind of like how I really got back into it. And then one of my old colleagues, who's also a colleague now, called Nadia, she manages the business for Maker in Latin America. She came to me one day and told me that, she got offered a new job, and she knew that like my situation was a little bit difficult because a lot of my expenses were in dollars, but I got paid in pesos. So my salary dropped around 50-60% in 10 months. And then she told me she got a new job and it paid in DAI. And then I immediately applied, and that was with Maker. And unfortunately, they didn't need more people in South America. So a couple of months later, I was on a plane back home to Denmark, moving back home. And then I started. So I would say like compared to like where I really got into it, which was this kind of like very hectic, OTC cash market in Argentina, to now where I do our business development in Europe, has also helped doing a lot of our projects in Asia. So now it's like a very different side of the spectrum where we spend a lot of time with projects that are building. We build out an ecosystem. We take a lot of time, working with each of the partners and so on, where before there wasn't really like partners. Before it was just individuals. So now it's definitely like a very different experience. But I think the Ethereum ecosystem community is just awesome to work with.
Okay, can you see me, or I'm blocked?
You're frozen.
Yeah, you're frozen.
Let me remove this. But you can hear me, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so let's jump into the second part of the interview. So a focus, we are going a bit in your experience and the feelings about Web3 and blockchain. So the first question is, what is the best use of Web 3.0, or specifically blockchain, which is part of Web 3.0, you have seen so far? So it could be a project, a use case, whatever you want to mention. Which is the best use case you have seen so far?
I can.
Yeah, maybe you start this time. Yeah.
Yeah. So, I mean, I think for me personally, it's just the fact that, you can self-custody and you can democratize access through, these like unbiased systems. So, instead of you needing the permission from someone to be able to take control of your money or like your finances and your spending, then you can, completely, it's completely up to you, right? It of course comes with a little bit more responsibility. So, there's no one you can call to. There's no dear mom if you lose your keys or something like that. But at the same time, I think it's something that really helps a lot of people around the world. So for me, it's kind of like the ability to like self-custody and like to take control of your own assets and finance. I think that's an incredible feat.
Mm-hmm. Maybe I can just like jump on this, and like it sort of ties into what you said, Gustav. But for me, it's also immutability. For like one not necessarily use case, but it was where it was showcased the best, I think, was so there's a project called Uniswap where you can exchange ETH with other USD20 tokens, or in general, it's like a decentralized exchange. And so their protocol, the infrastructure is, as I said, decentralized. And there was, I think, maybe 2 months back, or maybe a little bit longer, Uniswap, the UI was geo-blocked in some countries. But that didn't really result in the service to stop in those countries. There was just, because it's an open ledger and anybody can just build on top of that, there were just other people that built the UI and just like directly plugged into that state of the chain and just like plugged into that service right again. So it's not just centralized in one entity that can operate a particular service. It just can really be if one entity in that network is down, that doesn't need, or it doesn't result in the entire service to stop, but just someone else can like start again where others left off. I thought this was a really powerful showcase of the use of blockchain.
Thanks.
Yeah, I think this is really cool as well, right? Because this is something that, for example, us at Maker, like one of the things that we work towards, and I believe that we very soon there, if not already, is that even if the entire team disappeared tomorrow, then Maker would still exist and it would still be as strong as it is now, right? That's kind of like where you want to be. It shouldn't be dependent on like individuals. It should just be like dependent on the network, right?
Okay. Next question. Thanks, guys. Really good answers. Which are, in your opinion, the needed characteristics of a project to succeed in the space? I mean, we see every day a lot of projects popping up, and also ideas are usually very, very cool, but we see a lot failing. So why do you think, since you both work for a good and successful project, which are the characteristics in your opinion? Just mention 3 characteristics each. So Gustav, you can start.
I'm not sure if I could do this in bullet points.
Yeah, let's try. You need to try.
one characteristic I think a lot of projects have that I think is not, I wouldn't say failing, but is like lacking a little bit in their path to success. That is that a lot of projects they don't initially for like quite a while hire business people. So of course, like me and Leah, we also have to comment on this, right? Because we are business people ourselves. But I think like a lot of projects, like if you have someone who actually understands how to develop a sound business strategy and how to form and shape your product so it actually suits business needs. I think that's something that is very important. That like a lot of projects maybe are missing out a little bit. I personally think, and it's an advice I give to a lot of the projects. The first one took quite a bit up, so like I think like the second point, I'm just going to give two then. The second one is, and I think there's also like a tendency in the space to kind of like build cool stuff, so which is great, right? I mean, there's like a lot of very cool projects, but I don't believe that a lot of the projects, they start from like, oh, we want to make this a business, right? We want to we just want to make this because we think this is a cool concept, or like there's a lot of like people who like theorize about cool concepts and things, where it like in the traditional world, like why would you create a startup if it's not to make it a successful business? You don't just do something because it's cool. But I think that's a tendency we see a little bit in the space.
Yeah, I think I agree with Gustav, and I think for our project, I think we're a lot more use case driven. So we're on the intersection of like bridging traditional fintechs to DeFi. So those who seek to get finance and maybe have trouble getting them in with like the prevalent financial institutions, that DeFi can really be an alternative source for them. So we really need to listen to what their what their needs actually are, and that can be sometimes a lot more sober than the flashy DeFi space sometimes tends to focus on. So not losing track of that, what you're building actually will cater to the needs of those who are supposed to use it. And maybe because you mentioned other things already, Gustav, so maybe I can focus on actually the onboarding process. Like when I talk to a small to medium-sized business that actually want to use Web3 or like the DeFi space, it's sometimes we really lose them at MetaMask. So it can be quite tricky. So the whole user experience is still really cumbersome. So you really need to handhold some of them at the beginning and not forget about those who are maybe not so crypto native than you are in your little bubble. That's also true, but I think we used a lot of time for this one.
Here I am again for the next question. Now the camera works.
I can now not hear Maria.
Sorry?
You cannot hear Maria?
Oh
No.
my God, Leah, come on.
I can hear her. Maria, by the way, is that the old DAI logo I'm spotting on your t-shirt? You need to get one of the new ones.
Yeah, we need to order new swag. Now with the COVID situation, the posts and stuff. So
since I can't hear her, maybe Gustav, you can just repeat the question.
No, I didn't ask yet.
She didn't ask the question yet.
Okay.
Yeah. But why you don't hear me?
I don't know why she doesn't hear you.
So I will write the question in the chat. So the next question is for Leah, and it's so explain what is the Web 3.0 to your little sister. So if you don't have a little sister, imagine that you have a little sister and you have to explain briefly to her what is Web 3.0. Just Leah, because Gustav.
Yeah. Okay. Leah, you didn't hear that, right?
No.
Okay, so here it goes. Leah, I can't remember if you have a baby sister, but if you do, you have to explain to her what is Web 3.0. Very detailed.
Very detailed.
No,
I
no.
do not have an older sister. I have 2 older sisters. But
It doesn't have to be very detailed.
Okay. Okay, to put it super simple, Web3 is basically Web2 without the centralized servers and data silos. So if we take a step
What
back,
is data cycles and centralized services?
let me translate a second.
Yeah, I mean,
So, if we take a step back, so it all, like, we kind of started off with like these standalone computers. So I have a computer, Gustav has a computer, which is great, but if I wanted to share something with him, like at the very beginning, I still had to use hardware storage to actually like mail it to him. Then with World Wide Web, that data transfer became programmable, and it made it a lot easier for us to interact. With the emergence of Web, like Web 2.0 was sort of the this kind of revolutionized the way we interact with each other, and it made a lot of things a lot easier, like the emergence of social media, the likes of Facebook, etc. came up. So it's really like a front end. 8 years old, understand front end. Yeah, so it was really like a revolution of like what we see in our computers and how we can interact with people. But if we, for example, take the Facebook example as, yeah, if we look at Facebook, for example, I still have to trust that the information that I get, or the data also that I send is actually the one that comes out in the end to Gustav. So, and the data streams are really just like centralized through specific or like certain entities. So, and
why is that this bad? Don't you like Facebook, Leah?
Of course, we all do like Facebook to some extent. But for example, what happens then is, if it's all centralized in this one server, is if, for example, what I mentioned earlier with Uniswap, if the Facebook server is down, then I suddenly lose connection to my network. And for example, me as an individual, maybe I can wait for a couple of days to talk to Gustav. But for example, if I have a business and I sell on Facebook, that might become a problem.
Mm.
So I'm completely dependent on this one server. And what's also bad is that I don't own the data that I create on there. So whenever I interact on Web 2.0, a copy of my data is always stored in these centralized servers, and I don't know what's stored, and I don't know, and I can't even access the data that's stored there. And others actually monetize it. So Facebook can earn money with the data that I create. And with Web3, it's not necessarily a revolution, maybe for like from the front end perspective, but more in the back end perspective. So the architecture is a lot different. So instead of just relying on this one centralized server, I have a network of computers that all have the same sort of copy of history of transactions that Gustav and I created, for example. And everybody, whenever something is changed or whenever there's an update to the data, everybody has to validate. So everybody sort of has to say, okay, and then everybody operates on the same single source of truth. And for example, if I'm a server and Gustav is a server, Gustav is down, it doesn't matter, it can still continue. So I would say Web3 is more, like, makes Web 2 a lot more resilient and ensures that people still have the ownership of their data. I don't know if an 8-year-old is really into that explanation, but that's my best.
Okay, Leah's baby sister, she's in her first year of uni. She's studying computer science. Good grades.
I mean, a very, very, very smart sister. Okay.
But I think it's okay. I think we have smart people with us today. So
yeah. So next question for Gustav. It is, do you think that Web 3.0 will take less or more than Web 2.0 to reach mass adoption? Because we know that, for example, Internet and Web, which is Web 2.0, took some time to be adopted by the masses. And what do you think? So what is your...
This is actually pretty funny. So there was actually another quote which I was close to picking for Leah, which is from Tim Berners-Lee, who invented the World Wide Web. And his quote is, "The web as I envisioned it, we have not seen it yet. The future is still much bigger than the past." And I think that this specifically talks to, like, from my perspective, that we are kind of like in the same situation as Web 2.0 was in the past, right? We're kind of like now sitting on the forefront of what will be much, much bigger in the future. And there's so much growth still to be done. I'm not a personal believer in Web 3.0 completely overtaking Web 2.0. I think there's still like a lot of services that is completely fine to be centralized. But I believe that the impact for the people who really need Web 3.0, I believe that the impact of it will be as big as Web 2.0 has been, where Web 2.0 really democratized the access to information, right? All of a sudden, you didn't have to be, studying in a university or go to like a library in a developed country to get the information that you needed. However, in some places, of course, it had like a much larger impact than others, but for everyone in general, it had a massive impact, right? I think Web 3.0 will do the same way when it democratizes access to finance and assets. And this will also have like the greatest impact in countries where these things aren't accessible already, right? So I don't think that we will see like Web 3.0 necessarily overtaking 2.0. I think we're very far away from to reach the full potential of the space we are working in. But I do believe that the impact for the people who really needs it will be just as big as 2.0 has been for the people who needed that.
Cool. Leah, you can't hear me again, right?
Can you hear Maria? No.
I'm relying on you as my centralized data source.
Okay.
I like that.
Yeah, exactly.
That's a live showcase of the information that you receive will actually get like.
So the next question is for both of you guys, so it is, which is the main challenge you had to face in your current role so far? You have had to face. So which was the first, I mean, maybe the first or the biggest one you have? You can, you can tell the question to Leah. And then...
Leah, in your current role at Centrifuge, this is a question for both of us, by the way, so after you answer, then I'll answer. What is the biggest challenge you feel like you have faced so far? And if you don't have anything that like completely stands out, then what would be like one of the first major challenges? Just something that you went through that was a hardship.
It was a hardship. I think for us was, okay, so maybe I need to give like a little bit of background, like what we're doing. So at Centrifuge, we're basically building a decentralized protocol for asset-based financing. So if you're a company that delivers a service or a product, you usually have to, like, once you send out an invoice, you usually have to wait like 60 to 90 days to actually get paid. And that can extend even longer when you are, for example, a smaller business, or it depends on where you're located, for example. And often what companies do is they take out a loan to finance that gap, or like the time that they have to wait, because they have to pay tax, they have to pay staff, etc. So, and there's only a limit, that there are already offers out there, but they're very exclusive for businesses, and they can get quite expensive. So we're building this bridge from the traditional world to DeFi, so where we allow businesses to tokenize or bring their assets on chain, so like an invoice, for example, and then finance it through DeFi, for example, with DAI, for example, where they can just get access faster. And at the beginning, we were banking a little bit on the ecosystem to evolve a little bit faster, for example. So there are just like some components that we thought we don't have to build out ourselves. For example, I mentioned Dharma earlier. They were going down a similar route where we were thinking maybe we can collaborate there, and then we end up actually taking more time. So with DeFi, we really were betting on the composability of the ecosystem, and some of it turned out that we had to build ourselves, which then maybe had some delays, or then also we are not necessarily focused. Our protocol is, we really want to be the infrastructure, so that the bridge between those different entities, and are not necessarily end user focused. So we don't necessarily want to build out a UI. But as I said earlier, to really get a critical mass to first onboard, there's a lot of hand-holding involved. And that at times has been tricky. I think we managed quite well, but it just takes a lot of time, and I think you really have to factor that in, that other industries are maybe not as fast-paced as the DeFi ecosystem. So that was maybe one. So my role involves a lot of educational work and onboarding work as well. That is maybe one. Maybe I can think of another one when you talk, and we just have a more of a conversation.
Yeah, I'm gonna take mine, I think, from like a little bit more of like a personal perspective, and you know, there definitely has been like a lot of challenges, but I remember, so just when I started out at Maker, you know, I was still living in Argentina at this point, and then I moved back to Denmark in 2018 of December 2018. No, November 2018, and I remember this was like 2 months after I started at Maker, and I get back, and you know, I'm like I worked with crypto a little bit, been doing like some trading, but you know, I didn't really have like a very like in-depth like holistic view of what Maker was. There was nothing called DeFi at this time. This term wasn't coined yet, so you know, there was just like a lot of like unanswered questions for me, and I started working remotely from South America, and then I moved back, and I spent like a couple of weeks in the office, and then the next thing I know, I'm on a plane on my way to Singapore on like a Danish delegation, where I have to do like within a week, I had to do like 15 presentations of Maker, and at this point, I don't know if you can imagine it, but you know, starting with these projects here, they're like very complicated, and there's like so many variables and so many things that is, you know, like relative to each other. So I just remember, you know, I think that this is like a space where you like very easily can like get thrown into the deep end. Fortunately, that's something that I thrive under, and I really enjoy that kind of like pressure. But I also remember it was like a challenge for me, and you know, I don't think I've been that nervous, you know, in years. You know, it's been, you know, I think an exam in high school or something the last time I felt like that. So I could really feel that, you know, that was something that, you know, like the pressure of being around so many smart people and having so many smart people listening to what you're saying and kind of like wanting to give it your best. I think that was like something that I saw as like a very positive challenge, right?
And I think it's also maybe not directly tied into our work specifically, but maybe more product related. I think also the approach of building a product is a little bit different. I mean, like I know, for example, I know that Maker evolved, and with like introducing MCD, for example, the product changed. But like, you need to be. It seems like there are so many more checklists or like checks that you have to go under, that you have to undergo before you put something out on mainnet into the space.
It's the immutability, right?
Yeah, because like if you're putting out something that has an exploit, you can be sure that it will be exploited, and it can get really expensive, and it's very hard to change, and it gets very hard to take something back. So I mean, we just recently had our launch, and it can be very tense. It's just like so many layers or stages that you go through to really make sure that this is fine. Whereas like in other spaces, you just like put it out, you get some user feedback, and then you change it if it.
Yeah. You know, it's like if you launch a web shop and, you know, accidentally you put up that these like €100 products, they cost 100 cents, and people start buying it, you know, these people have acted in bad faith, and, you know, you don't actually have to ship them the products. But in the crypto space, if you send something for like 10 cents on the dollar, well, that's too bad. I mean, now someone else has it, you know. It's impossible to take these actions back. So you really need to be like 100% sure that the product is working. But that is something you can never really be, right? You can never really be 100% sure, because what if someone who is smarter than you takes a look at it and sees something that you didn't? That's one of the big problems we see in the space all the time, and not necessarily people smarter than you, but just people has a different perspective, different understanding of the technology, all of these factors, right?
Yeah.
Thank you, guys. So I think
blink twice whenever Maria is saying something.
I'm talking. I'm moving a lot while I'm talking, so you can see that I'm talking.
Can you see her? No, she can't see you neither.
Oh my God. Okay. So I was thinking that before we answer questions from the audience, we can jump in the last part, and then we can, if the audience have some questions, we will get them answered. We already have a question from Jesus. So the last part is some recommendations you want to give to both the newcomers and also to the people and the projects already operating in the space. So which recommendations would you like to give?
Okay, so Leah, before we go into questions from the audience, we have to give our take on recommendations, both for people looking to get into the space, so kind of like the newcomer type, you know, I think this is interesting, I want to work more with it, and also from like people already like, you know, having projects in the space, if there's something that, you know, we feel like we can share, like us both coming from reputable projects. So maybe I figure we can do one each, and I'll of course let you choose which one.
Maybe I do the ones that are already in the space.
Okay, I can do the newcomers.
So you start.
Okay, then I start. I think it ties into each other, because like I feel like when you first enter this, because when you first enter the space, it's so much information that's available there, and it's such a fast-paced environment. And like one thing is like really what I urge like those who are in the space to make information accessible, and to, I know it's lame, but like to use proper documentation. Actually, Maker is really good at it. There's a lot of resources out there. Some of the language with Maker is confusing though, flopper, flipper, flop auctions. But anyway, there are a lot of acronyms in this space which can make accessibility sometimes really difficult. So I would say actually really take the time to make sure that what you're doing, everything's open source, but because it's open source doesn't necessarily mean it's really accessible. So spend some time on documentation, information, tutorials, and talk to newcomers, help newcomers.
So Leah, you don't like Maker's variable names? Is that what I'm feeling here?
No, I'm just saying that there might be room for confusion.
True, I can get behind that. Okay. So for the newcomers, as Leah also touched a little bit upon, you know, this is a space where there's like so much information out there. I usually say that like I think a good way to like start connecting, especially if you're a student, is going to some of the conferences that are available. In this context here, I specifically want to recommend the developer conferences, even if you're not a developer, just because that in this space, there's a lot of event organizers who kind of like takes and like commercializes things. And then they have some of these, like I call them like pay to speak conferences, where, you know, people go in and they give, you know, these, you know, like commercial presentations about their products. I don't really like those. I really like the ones that, for example, like the ones that like the Ethereum Foundation is holding, the hackathons. There's also tons of presentations. There's always, some kind of like track, you call it, like an event track, like a presentation track that isn't necessarily overly technical, but it's more about like some of the business things. So, even at these developer conferences, you also see Leah and I on the stage, and we might use some lingua that you might not be familiar with, because we use some names or like some terms that you haven't learned yet. But it isn't like very technical. So I would definitely recommend things, such as like DEF CON, ETC in Paris is awesome in February every year. And then, like just like the different ETH hackathons around the world. They have been everywhere from, Singapore to India to South Africa. Yeah, all over the world. So I would recommend people, engaging there. And also, everyone is super open and friendly. So, even if you come up to someone, who is coming from like an established project or something, everyone will be very happy to take 5 minutes out of their agenda and take a chat and so on.
Yeah, it's also, I would say, just like really trying things out. Like go on MetaMask and just like really simple, like create a web wallet and then just like use some things. Like there's the Bounties network that like incentivizes to like just try out different projects and work on them. So I think you learn the most with that.
Okay, so
no, I can't see anyone anymore.
Let me try to remove you from the screen. And Gustav. So guys, I will re-invite Leah on the screen. Sorry about it. And Gustav disappeared. I don't know what happened. Let me check.
Okay, now I can see you again.
Can you see me?
Yeah, I can see and hear you.
I don't know what Gustav. I mean, but we can start by answering the questions from the audience.
Yeah, maybe.
Yeah, and we have so if you guys from the audience have questions, please write them in the chat. We have the first, which is: do you think companies like Twitter or Facebook will embrace Web 3.0 or will compete with it?
I mean, I think it will. It might be a little bit of both. So I mean, like if you look at Facebook, for example, they launched a Libra Alliance, or their Libra initiative, where they want to bring like a crypto payment service to all their users. I mean, this is quite powerful because they just have like, how many users does Facebook have? 2 billion. So like it would be super powerful with adoption. But like also looking here, it's like it's not necessarily like the way they set it up is not as open as Ethereum, as like the blockchain that we're working on. So I think the takes that they might have is still like a way to best monetize it and not as open as the space that we're working on. So I would rather say that they might more compete with it or have a different version of it.
Yeah. However, I think one thing that is really good to note here is that since a lot of this stuff here is programmable and compatible with each other, that means let's say that Facebook, they would integrate Libra everywhere, then we would actually have like a very, very easy way to go in and make DAI available in all of those places as well, right? Like whenever you kind of like open the faucet for like one thing in the space, then it's very difficult for them to go and control everything that happens around that. So one thing that is very good with some of these like large organizations going into the space is actually, it actually can open up for access for like all of the projects that is in the space currently now, right? And I think especially Twitter has been very the founder has been very vocal about his support for crypto, right? And we have the Bitcoin emoji now as a start on Twitter as well.
Okay, thanks guys. The other question we got from the audience is from Ayodei. I don't know if I pronounced it correctly. Many people seems to make Web 3.0 more about finance. Away from finance, what other areas do you see Web 3.0 disrupting with much impact?
Mm-hmm. Maybe I can have one, because there just comes one example to my mind that that I just recently discussed with one of the projects that we're working with. So we're working with one freight forwarder, which is a company that it's sort of a marketplace for all the different stakeholders that are involved in trade. So like shipping an item from point A to B, and like all the different transportation mechanisms that you can imagine. And this is an incredibly old industry. And what one of them has been telling me that, for example, of the ridiculous importance of this bill of lading. And bill of lading is really a piece of paper that whoever has this physical piece of paper owns the entire cargo that is on that ship, for example. And oftentimes this piece of paper has to be shipped, or has to separately, it has to be physically flying from on a plane, for example, from point A to point B, so a person can hand over it to another person. And this is an industry which is in desperate need also for digitalization, but because this paper is so important, it would be important to have a way to uniquely verify that a specific person, for example, signed that piece of paper. And it cannot be changed, for example, or it cannot easily be forged. And for example, blockchain could help with this. You can just attach a cryptographic signature to a piece of paper, for example, that cannot just be altered by anyone. So this is one thing that
I think the reason why
just the provenance of things.
I think the reason why we often talk about finance is because that what the blockchain does is it allows you to transact data, right? And data can be, for example, the updated value of a balance, but it can also be very important pieces of information, like Leah just referred to there, which is also why that if you go into things exactly like provenance or also like ID, then this is things that the blockchain really can solve. I think the problem that is holding things a little bit back now is that, for example, the major blockchains, they have a little bit of transactional cost. So you also want something which, has reached a point where it can actually scale with these things and where you can do a lot of transactions without having to think about, it's going to cost you money, especially because where some of these countries where these things will be solved is emerging markets where you don't have, the money to spend 20 cents or something, or a couple of bucks on gas cost, right? But there's so many things that it can help with, especially whenever it's something important, data you want to be unmutable.
Okay, I think guys we can stop here, because I also want to host on our stage Natalie from our HR department, who will pitch our openings and our opportunities to join the team. So I want to thank you a lot, guys, to be here, and I really enjoy to talk with you and Gustav all the time. Leah a bit less, but I hope to see you in person very soon.
I just want to note here that both Leah and I will just write our contact information in the chat. So if any of you guys want to reach out to us, if you have any questions, or if you kind of like want to follow the progress we have, then you can follow us on Twitter or reach out to us on Telegram or LinkedIn.
Okay. Perfect. Thank you, guys, again. And I will now invite Natalie on the stage. I don't know where is Natalie actually. Natalie, can you tell me your username on Crowdcast, because I can't find you. I mean, write in the chat or something. In the meantime, I want to tell you everybody that this series of meetups is open to everybody in the community. So everybody who wants to be a guest here can apply. If you follow our channels, Telegram, Twitter, Facebook, or my LinkedIn, you can, and my Telegram and my Twitter as well, you will see the link to apply. And also now I will show you some useful links in the meantime, some useful links that you can visit. Okay, so here you see the makerdao.com, which is our website where you can find every information you need. We just now implemented the community landing page, where you can find all the information you need. Then the blog and the forum, and then Oasis.app, which is our app where you can manage your DAI. I think Natalie should be ready now. So let me try to. Okay. She should be here.
Can you see me? Yes.
Yeah.
I can see myself. Hope everyone else can.
Sorry. Okay. So let me introduce Natalie. She's from our HR department at Maker Foundation, and she will pitch you a bit what happens with our job openings and everything.
Cool. Thank you. Hi, everyone. Happy Friday. Thank you once again for joining the chat. We hope you enjoyed our first FriDAI Brunch. As Mira introduced me, I look after recruitment here at Maker, being based up in Manchester in England remotely. So I thought I'd just quickly jump on the end with a bit of a shameless plug, as you know, we're always looking to grow our teams across the board here. So I'd love to hear from you if you're interested in getting into the space, or you might be interested in one of our live roles at the moment. So at the moment, to give you a bit of an idea, we're looking specifically in Europe to hire across tech. So anything from back-end engineers, front-end engineers, full stack, DevOps. And we're also looking to hire content writers as well. So I'd love to connect with all of you, either on LinkedIn, or I'll ping my details on the chat as well. If you want to send me your resume, share it with your network, I'm more than happy to talk to you about what it's actually like to work at Maker, the interview process, what it's like to work remotely with us, and anything else really. So yeah, I look forward to talking with you. I'm happy to talk in more detail and share the job postings on here as well, if it's anything that you guys might be interested in. Cool, thank you. How do I get Maria back on?
Sorry,
I know. I can just see me.
Okay. Okay, thank you a lot, Natalie, for your speech. And
I'll put everything on here, and then anyone wants to connect, I can have a chat with you guys. Thank you.
okay, thank you a lot, everybody, to join the first FriDAI brunch, and I hope to see you in the next one. And have a nice weekend. Enjoy your Friday and your rest of the week. Bye bye.